Right, so Keir Starmer, to nobody's surprise whatsoever, is running to Israel's rescue as Iran continues to make them pay dearly for instigating a strike on their nuclear facilities and targeting their military leaders and scientists. Of course, Starmer is saying we need more military gear out there to protect our assets. He's not committed one way to saying whether or not he's going out there to defend Israel, which means even he's not prepared to lie about that one. But the mere fact he's still saying Israel has a right to defend itself, even as they instigate strikes on another state, which evidently doesn't have a right to defend itself in his mind, though Iran as a sovereign state very much does, just raises the suspicion surrounding Starmer's motivations here. Of course, if he is planning on engaging in a military strike, he's forgotten something. The small matter of parliamentary scrutiny for the basis of such an action and sign off on it. He can take this action if there is urgency, but there is no urgency regarding UK assets here. Simply an urgency for Israel, who are no doubt wailing for help right now, as their air defences, for all of their claims, have proven to be utterly useless in the face of the Iranian retaliation. Starmer is going out there to aid Israel. Surely this is not a point anyone is contesting, given all of his prior pro-Israeli actions. And given the warning from Iran that should the UK, US or France interfere and side with Israel militarily against them, that this will put targets on those UK military assets. Starmer is not de-escalating matters as he is calling for. He is very much escalating, and not protecting UK interests, but risking them for a genocidal apartheid state that has bitten off more than it can chew.
Yes, the Prime Minister has told reporters and told our political editor, Beth Rigby, that in his words, as a contingency, RAF jets have been dispatched from UK to bases in the Middle East in response to the rising tensions. He said that that decision was made yesterday as news emerged of those attacks by Israel on Iran. Now, this all comes in the context of some pretty firm threats by Iran, not only to the UK, but to France and the United States, that if any of these nations, if the UK does get involved with, for example, intercepting missiles or drones that might be fired from Iran to Israel, then there would be consequences for the United Kingdom. A senior Iranian commander warning, if they help stop Tehran's strikes on Israel, their bases and ships will be targeted. Now, the Prime Minister has time and time again said that the UK is not involved in the military action between Israel and Iran, and he says that there should be more open diplomatic dialogue. But the Prime Minister has said that this is a contingency, and it's perhaps not surprising that the UK will be sending military assets to the Middle East. That could be places like Cyprus, Oman, the UAE, to try as a contingency, as a backup, to protect UK interests as these rising tensions escalate. So yes, we've now had it confirmed that British fighter jets and other assets now heading to the Middle East, but the Prime Minister being quite clear in that that is as a contingency rather than any reading into this that we are in some way engaging militarily in the conflict between Iran and Israel.
The UK says it's moving military assets to the Middle East for what it calls contingency support across the region. Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Royal Air Force jets will be sent for reinforcement as tensions between Iran and Israel escalate. Starmer has also held a call with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, to discuss de-escalation. Tehran has threatened to attack US, French and British bases if those countries help Israel defend Iranian strikes.
The Prime Minister announced last night that we are sending assets, including jets, to the Middle East to ensure that our assets and our people in the region are protected, and also to support our allies. Obviously, it's incredibly concerning about what's happening in the Middle East for people who are there, but also because of the global ramifications potentially. And that's why the Prime Minister and our allies are urging for de-escalation. That is what is really critical right now.
Right, so that was a couple of clips there. Sky News, Al Jazeera and Rachel Reeves on Trevor Phillips' show this morning, showing a host of contradictory assessments regarding the reasoning the UK is sending more military assets to the Middle East after Israel launched that unprovoked strike on Iran and Iran have responded to a degree Israel simply has not been prepared for. Is it a contingency or backup to protect UK interests? How is this a defence of British interests when we already have large assets out there? Is it wise given the threats Iran have made regarding their involvement in protecting Israel? Is it defence of our allies, which frankly reads as code for Israel? Who else will we move more assets out there for, after all? And how does this marry up with claims of wanting more dialogue? Why, if you want to de-escalate, do you need to reinforce UK air bases? Oh, but then Rachel Reeves let the cat out of the bag, didn't she, by bringing up supporting our allies. So it is all about Israel then, isn't it? The UK has moved RAF jets and military transport assets to the Middle East with this stated aim of contingency support. That word contingency doing a lot of heavy lifting. But the reality is almost certainly that Starmer is dragging Britain into a conflict in which it has no justifiable strategic interest whatsoever, that violates constitutional norms in doing so, and is endangering British lives and assets potentially to support a foreign government embroiled in an aggressive military campaign that it started, all whilst hypocritically bleating about their right to self-defence. According to multiple reports now, the UK has recently deployed RAF fighter jets to the Middle East. Amongst these, according to Matt Kennard of Declassified UK, the support includes an A400M military transport craft and a Voyager KC-3 air-to-air refuelling plane, having dispatched from RAF Brize Norton to RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. This action was taken in the wake of Iranian threats and amidst heightened tensions following Israel's strikes on Iranian facilities, strikes that have drawn widespread criticism for targeting civilian nuclear infrastructure, which is itself a war crime, an act prohibited under Article 56 of the Additional Protocol to the Geneva Convention, which states that works or installations containing dangerous forces, namely dams, dikes, and nuclear electrical generating stations, shall not be made the object of attack, even where these objects are military objectives, if such attack may cause the release of dangerous forces and consequent severe losses amongst the civilian population. But Israel has the right to defend itself, doesn't it? Is this another case of Israel does have that right then, Keir Starmer? They can cut off food and power to Gaza, something you've never apologised for saying, live on radio as you did, now by your actions given what Israel has already done in its strikes on Iran, and given the contents of Article 56 there, are we to now presume Israel does have the right to strike nuclear facilities then? What don't they have the right to if that's the case? I'd be fascinated to hear your answer to that particular question. If only somebody in the mainstream media would ask it. Anyway, despite these moves, Starmer and his government continue to maintain a public posture of de-escalation. In an official statement, Starmer said the UK is calling for calm on all sides, while also refusing to rule out the defence of Israel at the same time, thereby, in my view, completely contradicting himself. And after it has been alleged that RAF assets have already been used to intercept Iranian drones, an act that places the UK squarely in the conflict already, and very much having picked a side at that. Perhaps most troubling is the manner in which these military decisions have been made, a point expertly made in a tweet by ICJP Director and Head of International Law at legal firm Bindman's Tayyab Ali, a message he put out for the attention of all British MPs. To all UK MPs, Keir Starmer is violating a clear constitutional convention by engaging troops in support of Israel. As set out in the UK's Cabinet Manual of 2011, paragraph 5.38, there is a well-established expectation that Parliament should be consulted before committing UK armed forces to military action, except in cases of urgency. There is no such urgency now, only silence. The British public overwhelmingly opposes Israel's actions in Gaza, according to YouGov polling. Yet Starmer would have our armed forces risk their lives in support of a state accused of genocide by the International Court of Justice and their leaders indicted at the ICC for war crimes without a single vote in Parliament. This is a breach of constitutional convention, democratic duty and moral integrity. You were elected to represent the people. If the government won't respect Parliament, Parliament must hold the government to account. Demand a vote before British lives are put on the line for a foreign war the public does not support. Very well put, very well said. The UK's Cabinet Manual of 2011, paragraph 5.38, incidentally sets out a clear expectation that Parliament should be consulted before committing UK armed forces to military action, except in cases of exceptional urgency. In this case, there is no immediate threat to UK territory or citizens that would justify bypassing this convention. So Parliament needs to intervene and hold Starmer's feet to the fire for what he's doing here. The threat is to Israel, not the UK. Starmer's unilateral action in sending military reinforcements to the Middle East without a vote in Parliament is therefore a serious breach of established democratic procedure. Starmer has not offered any compelling justification for this breach, but then nobody's asked him either, have they? Our mainstream media failing once again. There has been no urgent humanitarian need, no attack on UK soil or assets as yet, and no direct appeal from the United Nations for intervention. There is only the thin rationale of protecting UK assets, which, upon closer examination, is surely just a veiled reference to defending Israeli interests. Certainly Tayeb Ali seems to think so there from what he's said. The government's claim that its military deployments are for the protection of UK assets does not withstand scrutiny. The deployment of air-to-air refuelling tankers and advanced fighter jets are not standard defensive measures, are they? They're tools for offensive operations and extended combat support. Rachel Reeves confirmed in that interview that assets are being moved to assist allies, a term that almost certainly refers to Israel, doesn't it? The Al Jazeera report on Britain's so-called contingency support further reveals the dissonance in the government's messaging. If the UK truly sought de-escalation, as Starmer claims, then sending additional military resources to a highly volatile region makes no sense at all. It is a total contradiction. Instead, this signals a deliberate tilt towards Israel, making the UK complicit in its military actions and provocations yet again. Iran has issued explicit warnings to any nation that aids Israel militarily. Tehran has stated unequivocally that countries involved in Israel's defence, particularly the US, UK and France, they were singled out, risk retaliatory attacks on their assets in the region. And this is not an idle threat. We know it's not. Iran has demonstrated both the capability and the will to act on such warnings, both in the past and right now, as Israel was warned. So by moving UK military assets into Iran's line of fire and siding with Israel, Starmer is recklessly endangering British lives and property for reasons not in our national interest at all. Further aggravating the situation is the ambiguity surrounding UK involvement in recent drone interceptions as well. According to multiple sources, UK and US jets allegedly participated in intercepting Iranian drones targeting Israel. If true, this amounts to a direct act of war against Iran, despite the threats, a nation that, unlike Israel, has not attacked the UK and has only retaliated in response to an unprovoked Israeli strike. According to multiple sources, UK and US jets allegedly participated in intercepting Iranian drones targeting Israel. If true, this amounts to a direct act of war against Iran, despite the threats, and against a nation that has not attacked the UK ever and has only retaliated in response to an unprovoked Israeli strike. What makes the UK's involvement particularly egregious is the doublethink at play. While Starmer assures the public that the UK seeks de-escalation, he calls Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to express unqualified support for Israel's right to self-defense. And this was made public via an official government communication published on the government's website just 2 days ago. Starmer cannot have it both ways. He cannot speak the language of peace whilst enabling war and escalating it. He cannot claim neutrality whilst deploying military force on one side of the conflict. What he is doing, it again undermines public trust and sends dangerous mixed signals to allies and adversaries alike. Rachel Reeves echoed this contradictory stance by stating that Israel has a right to defend itself as well, even as the evidence points to Israel having initiated the hostilities with strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities, violating international law. By standing with Israel in this context, therefore, Starmer is effectively endorsing their illegal actions and by extension making the UK complicit in them. Starmer has justified the UK support for Israel in part by citing long-standing concerns over Iran's nuclear program. Yet time and again, Israel has claimed that Iran is on the brink of nuclear armament, claims that have never been substantiated that they've been making for decades. Iran has been months from producing a nuclear weapon since the 1980s, according to Israel, and it's been a line Netanyahu himself has been repeating for the last 30 years. What is different now, then? Only that Israel, in Netanyahu's desperation to cling on to power, has decided to strike Iran. The reasoning as baseless as it ever has been. These allegations have historically been used as pretext for aggressive policy and for preemptive strikes. If the UK is now basing its foreign policy on such contested assertions, then we are not only risking British lives, but undermining the credibility of international law and diplomacy as it's done. Starmer's decision to support Israel's actions is not rooted in any verified intelligence or imminent threat at all, because there's no evidence, but in a politically convenient narrative instead that serves one side of the conflict, the side Starmer is always on, Zionist without qualification as he is. Moreover, such alignment exposes the UK to retaliatory strikes, destabilises the region, and increases the risk of a broader conflagration. So the cost of this alignment may not be measured only in diplomatic capital, which Starmer is burning at a rate of knots, but in the blood of British soldiers whilst he's at it. Keir Starmer has led Britain into a dangerously ambiguous and unmandated military posture in the Middle East. His government's duplicity, which has become its defining trait across all areas of policy, not just defence, saying one thing and doing another, has eroded public trust, breached constitutional convention, and now imperils British military personnel and interests. The decision to move additional assets to the region to potentially support a foreign power engaged in illegal military action cannot be allowed to proceed without parliamentary scrutiny, and MPs have a responsibility to act. They were elected to do so, so they must. This is not just a foreign policy issue, it's a test of the UK's democratic integrity now. The British public deserve transparency here, accountability, and a foreign policy that prioritises peace, legality, and our national interest. Not allegiance to a foreign military agenda being adhered to on a whim by Starmer, bought and paid for by the Israel lobby, as all those donations to him seemingly bear out. It is time for Parliament to demand answers, for the public to ask critical questions, and for Keir Starmer to be held to account for this, because there is zero justification. The United Kingdom should not sleepwalk into yet another war for the sake of Israel, who Starmer is loyal to, and which gives him the excuse to raid the dressing up box again for his military gear. Our national interests are not directly at stake here, but Starmer loves war, and here his love of Israel too means he gets to combine both. But he doesn't have a right under parliamentary convention to do that. If we truly believe in de-escalation, we need to start with de-escalating Starmer. For more on why Israel's attack on Iran is a fatal mistake that Starmer is now dragging us into, check out this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, as well as spreading the word and helping to support the channel at the same time, which is very much appreciated. Holding power to account for ordinary working class people, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.